ever walk into your own guest house and find two strangers in matching silk robes sipping wine like they're in a spa commercial? Because I have. And trust me, it was not on my bucket list. It was a Saturday afternoon. I had just gotten back from running errands when I noticed the front door to my guest house, yes, the one in my backyard, was slightly ajar. At first, I thought maybe a friend had stopped by, or maybe my cousin had left it open the last time she visited, but nope. I opened the door and walked straight into what looked like a romantic Airbnb getaway. There was a half-eaten cheese platter on my ottoman, a fire crackling in the fireplace, and two strangers lounging like they'd paid top dollar for it. One of them looked up and said, "Oh, hey, you must be the concierge." I blinked, twice. Then deadpan said, "No, I'm the owner, and you're trespassing." That should have been the end of it, right? Cue the apologies, the mad scramble to pack up. But nope. They looked confused. Genuinely. The guy even pulled out his phone and showed me the Airbnb listing. Photos of my guest house, my yard, even my grill. There it was, live and active, with 6 future bookings and over 25-star reviews. And the host's name? Lena Wexler. Now, if you're lucky enough not to know a Lena Wexler, count your blessings. Lena is our HOA president. She's the type of woman who reports you for having Halloween decorations still up on November 2nd. She once fined a neighbor for planting unapproved perennials. She's also been gunning for my property ever since I spoke out at a board meeting about her community beautification campaign, which really just meant removing everything she personally didn't like. So when I realized it was her behind this bogus listing, something snapped. The next morning, Lena strutted down my driveway like she was leading a 4th of July parade. Clipboard in hand, sun hat bigger than her ego. "Oh, good. I see the weekend guests made it in," she chirped, like this was all totally normal. I asked her how she even got inside. She smiled and said, "Maintenance access. We had a lock replacement order from the HOA Safety Subcommittee. I signed off on it." She then handed me a lease agreement, with her name listed as both landlord and property manager. She had signed it twice, in 2 different pens. I asked her if she was out of her mind. She replied, "Actually, I'm just efficient." I called the cops, and to their credit, they showed up fast. But the second they saw Lena, one officer let out this tired sigh and muttered, "Oh, great, her again." Turns out, Lena has a bit of a reputation around here. Last month, she called 911 on a Girl Scout troop for unlicensed cookie distribution. Anyway, the officers reviewed the listing, saw the messages, and listened to Lena's defense, that I had abandoned the guest house, and she was claiming it under something called Community Reassignment Clause. She even said she'd filed for adverse possession. One officer asked, "Do you even know what adverse possession means?" Lena nodded. "It means I get to keep it if nobody stops me." That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a bottle of wine and a browser full of HOA horror stories, legal forums, and scam listings. I wasn't just mad, I was motivated. The next morning, I called my cousin, April. She works in cybersecurity and has a deep-seated hatred for HOA abuse. She brought her laptop and within an hour had uncovered 5 separate Airbnb listings, all tied to Lena. Each one had glowing reviews for things like gourmet breakfasts and private hot tub access with scenic hillside views. Which was weird, because we don't have hills. Worse, some of the photos were of my neighbors' homes. April even found payment records connected to Lena's real bank account. we realized she wasn't just listing my house. She had turned the whole neighborhood into her fake Airbnb empire. That's when I called Ron and Marla from 2 blocks over. Ron answered in his usual gruff voice, but when I told him what Lena had done, he went silent. Then said, "So that explains the wet towels and broken wine glass." They had chalked it up to their teenage grandson. Turns out, Lena had rented out their guest suite, too. I found 3 more neighbors with similar stories. One guy had seen a stranger grilling in his yard and thought it was his wife's cousin. Another came home from a business trip to find the sheets changed and a used toothbrush in his bathroom. Lena had pulled off a full-scale scam, right under our noses. We decided it was time for a reckoning. That night, at the monthly HOA meeting, I brought my laptop and April brought receipts. The room was packed. Lena walked in late, wearing a new floral dress and a smug smile. As soon as she started talking about her community utilization plan, I stood up and interrupted. "I'd like to share a few updates from the local Airbnb scene," I said. One by one, I clicked through Lena's listings. Gasps filled the room. One guy stood up and yelled, "That's my shed!" Another woman burst into tears. She thought she was losing her mind because her pantry kept getting rearranged. Lena tried to spin it, saying, "These were underutilized spaces I was helping monetize for the good of the community." I asked, "Did you ever ask permission?" She said, "It was implied." Let's just say the crowd did not take that well. Shouting. Accusations. Somebody demanded a recall vote on the spot. Lena tried to adjourn the meeting. Too late. The damage was done. But the story wasn't over yet. I hired a lawyer, my friend Mason, who lives for HOA takedowns. He filed a cease and desist. Lena responded with a countersuit, accusing me of defamation, harassment, and, you guessed it, loss of projected income. She even submitted a forged lease agreement typed in Comic Sans, with my name misspelled. The signature looked like a toddler wrote it during an earthquake. The case went to court. Lena showed up with a binder labeled Neighborhood Stabilization Protocol and opened with, "Your Honor, I only ever wanted to help." But Mason had a surprise. We called a housing compliance officer who had posed as an Airbnb guest in one of her listings. He testified that Lena gave him keys to 3 homes she didn't own, told him to ignore anyone who said otherwise, and even offered a private chef upgrade using her neighbor's grill. That was the nail in the coffin. The judge ruled in our favor. Full restitution, immediate removal as HOA president, and a permanent ban from hosting anything, anywhere. And that's not even the craziest part, because a week later, during a finance audit, we discovered Lena had been funneling HOA funds, our dues, into her scam. Thousands spent on monogrammed robes, goat cheese, imported candles, and a backyard pizza oven for her house. Turns out she had even hired a firm in Dubai to promote Cox retreats as luxury American getaways with drone footage. Footage she got using someone else's drone. We found a hidden bin in her garage with dozens of keys to other homes, personal notes on how to access them, and even Airbnb printouts. It was straight-up predatory. She wasn't just greedy. She was organized. In the end, Lena was sentenced to community service under the city's Housing Code Enforcement Department. Yep, the woman who once fined people for mismatched patio furniture was now handing out real citations for short-term rental violations. Her house? Foreclosed? Her empire? Reduced to ash. And me? I turned the guest house into a legit Airbnb listing called Not Lena's Place. It's booked solid. Guests leave notes like, "Loved the stay. No HOA presidents lurking in the pantry." I even framed one that said, "Would have been perfect if the ghost of Lena hadn't moved the shampoo." But the best part? Our neighborhood changed. People started talking again, sharing tools, hosting cookouts. We even have a community garden now, where her driveway used to be the site of surveillance patrols. One day, while I was fixing the deck, I found her old clipboard wedged under the boards, the same one she used to carry like it was a badge of honor. I showed it to April, who said, "We should frame it, call it a trophy." I tossed it into the fire pit instead, because this story wasn't about Lena. It was about a neighborhood waking up, about regular people refusing to be stepped on, and about how, when you stand together, even the biggest HOA tyrant can be brought down, one spreadsheet and cheese platter at a time. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with an HOA president gone rogue? Or had a neighbor try to claim authority they didn't have? Drop your story in the comments. I read every single one. Let's swap some HOA horror stories and keep this conversation going.